Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to declare the 76th Ordinary Annual General Meeting of the Racehorse Owners Association officially open. I'd like to thank you all for joining us at this meeting. As you know, COVID has seen some material changes to the way in which AGMs are hosted this year, and we thank you for your patience in these trying of times. The meeting will begin with the formal AGM and will then be followed by the President's speech, and then our members' forum. Due to the nature of this year's AGM, there will be no industry speaker. We will deal with the official procedures of the meeting and the articles to approve. The notice convening this meeting is set out on page 1 of the annual report, which has been circulated to all members. For the purposes of this meeting, it is taken as read. We will deal with the items set out in the annual report under Notice of Meeting. According to best corporate practice, I will announce the proxy vote after each resolution. I would also like to remind you that in accordance with the Articles of Association, each of today's resolutions are ordinary resolutions and therefore simply require a majority vote. Item A, to receive by way of ordinary resolution the nominations of the Board for President, Charlie Parker, and Vice President, Chris Wright, for the coming year. We have received 69 proxy forms supporting Resolution A and 4 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item B, to receive, by way of ordinary resolution, the results of the election to fill vacancies on the board. Those board members who retired this year are Nicholas Cooper, Sally Bethel, and Paul Duffy. We extend our sincere thanks to them for their outstanding contribution over the last few years. There are 15 candidates who have stood for election to the board. There were 3 vacancies on the board, and as 15 candidates contested these 3 places, an online ballot was held. This was organised on behalf of the ROA by Civica, who have now provided us with the results. There were 1,425 valid votes counted. Full details of the voting results were circulated to members in July. I am now pleased to inform the meeting that the following have been elected onto the board: Sam Hoskins, Gay Kellaway, Alan Spence. We have received 70 proxy forms supporting Resolution B and 3 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item C, to confirm and adopt, by way of ordinary resolution, the report and financial statements for the 12-month period ended 31st of March 2020. We have received 73 proxy forms supporting Resolution C and none against. I declare the resolution carried. Item D, to appoint, by way of ordinary resolution, RMS UK Audit LLP as auditors in accordance with Section 485 of the Companies Act 2006, as amended. We have received 72 proxy forms supporting Resolution D and 1 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item E, to authorise, by way of ordinary resolution, the ROA Board to fix the remuneration of the auditors. We have received 72 proxy forms supporting Resolution E and none against. I declare the resolution carried. So that concludes the formal part of the meeting, for which many thanks. I'd now like to invite our President, Charlie Parker, to address the meeting.
Good morning. This is not how I thought I would be making my first speech as the ROA's new president, but we are currently living in a world which requires us to adapt to new realities. So I thank you for making the effort to be with us virtually for this AGM. The way in which owners have supported their horses and trainers during the lockdown and then have adapted during this crisis has been phenomenal. In truly testing times, owners have given unprecedented support to racing, and this should never be forgotten. I'm extremely proud to be taking on the presidency of the ROA at a time when more than ever we need to represent you and work with others to deliver the future of this sport. This crisis presents us with opportunities for real change and to drive forward our organisation and our sport with an effective long-term vision. But before we look forward, allow me to take a moment in retrospect to thank our outgoing president, Nick Cooper. In his tenure, Nick oversaw some real progress, notably on welfare, as well as steering the organisation through a period of growth and increasing strength. His contribution is greatly valued, and I thank him for his dedication to both the ROA and racing at large. Also leaving the board after periods of extended and dedicated service are Sally Bethel and Paul Duffy, and our thanks and best wishes go to both of them. During the year under the review, we have seen the ROA continue to strengthen. Charlie Liverton has led the organisation in a forward-looking direction, delivering modernisation, collaborating across racing, and tackling head-on major issues that affect the interests of owners. All initiatives that position us well for the future. The ROA has been a transformational moment. By engaging with our members and other industry stakeholders, the ROA has developed into an organisation that properly understands and represents all owners. On the major issues, we have fought strongly, and continue to do so, to ensure owners are appropriately rewarded for their commitment to this sport. And we have held racecourses to account as we seek a fairer set of commercial agreements around the key issue of prize money. We have also made significant commitments to equine welfare and have been instrumental in the delivery of the Horse Welfare Board's report, and during the crisis, the creation of the Racing Relief Fund. In addition, the ROA have contributed to the industry's Brexit strategies and continue to do so. As we have worked tirelessly to create and enhance the race day experience through the ROA Gold Standard. The organisation has become physically closer to its members in its move outside London, with the result that the ROA will become even more open, collaborative and representative. These achievements were an important part of our long-term strategy, but in the current pandemic are vital to ensuring the future of racing. COVID presented us with an existential challenge, a crisis that took the sport we love to the very edge. But the industry as a whole, with the ROA embedded in every single work stream, has ensured the sport's return ahead of all other major sports. The next step is to get crowds back, and the pilot schemes in the next few weeks are an encouraging sign. The ROA has continued to deliver throughout the crisis with dedication and hard work, putting owners at the forefront of the recovery. It is imperative that the ROA never fails to champion the incredible support of owners through this period, and as we look to secure the long-term future of racing. COVID has brought great challenges for everybody working in racing, and now more than ever, the ROA is making sure it represents you and works with others to protect the future of our sport. In the past year, the ROA has secured the right foundations and built the right relationships to create a platform from which it can continue to deliver for owners and for racing. The economic challenges that we now face mean that the work is only just beginning. We must now look to the future of our sport with fresh thinking and creativity, challenge assumptions and models no longer fit for purpose, and address the fundamental issues of our industry. Racing requires significant modernisation if it is to survive and thrive in the future. The current crisis presents the opportunity to deliver that modernisation, and I am proud to say that the ROA has been leading the work on a vision for racing's future. Alongside its day-to-day work, the ROA will be underpinning its representation of owners by pursuing a clear set of long-term goals aimed at supporting ownership in racing, encouraging growth in the sport, and ensuring a sustainable and healthy long-term future. We must address the imbalances and inequalities in the sport. Racing can no longer hide from the future. It must embrace a progressive and fair approach, one which represents and protects its participants. To achieve this, the ROA and the horsemen are determined to work with the racecourses and other stakeholders to grow the engagement in the sport, to help explore and exploit new revenue streams, to increase the size and scope of the industry for the benefit of all. We have had to learn to adapt in these challenging times. Change that was perhaps inevitable has quickened and arrived at our doorstep earlier than anticipated. We can ignore it and face decline, or we can grasp it and create a better future for racing. That is a future that can inspire next generations into ownership and participation, into stable yards, into riding, into welfare, into our community, and into the world of racing. In the coming months, we will be rolling out our vision and goals. We encourage debate and want to hear your responses. By working together, we can deliver a better future. I look forward to collaborating with you to support the future of the sport that we all love. Thank you.
I'm Louise Norman and I'm the Head of Ownership at the ROA. Despite COVID-19, we have progressed through the AGM and we're bringing now to you the questions that have been submitted by our owners. So we'd like to take some time to answer those now. As we understand it, with the current impact of COVID-19 on the economy, the reduction of prize money by some racecourses may look to have a longer lasting effect on owners, trainers and jockeys. How do the ROA envisage this can be prevented and resolved in both the short term and the longer term? And what actions are the ROA taking towards this prevention?
Well, prize money is an issue, and the decline in prize money this year through COVID has obviously had a terrible impact on owners and horsemen in general. In terms of looking forward to growing the prize money fund and prize money pot, there's three main initiatives. There is work going on the levy extension to include overseas racing that will hopefully produce more income for the levy, which can then be redirected into prize money. There are currently negotiations ongoing around the commercial agreements that racecourses and horsemen have that support the executive contributions that the racecourses can make into prize money. And the key there is the income they receive from betting companies through their media rights transactions and agreements. And to clarify a fair share of media rights going forward in a growing environment will again improve the prize money pot. And then the third initiative is looking to a mid-term future where the very funding of the sport can be addressed, the way people bet online, and that's an exciting piece of work that is also ongoing. So there are three initiatives that I think, if we can get through the COVID crisis, will hopefully start to return prize money to where it was and improve it going forward. In terms of the ROA's impact in those discussions, it's through the Horsemen's Group body, which we now chair, and work collaboratively with our other stakeholders and with our input and influence over the BHA, and collaborating with the racecourses as well. And I think it's fundamental that the ROA lead on all of those relationships, and hopefully we can be optimistic that we can achieve it.
Our owners want to establish what the ROA will be doing to address the huge issue of grassroots prize money and the specific steps being taken to improve the allocation of funds for Class 4 races and below.
So in the resumption of racing working group that addressed the first 10 weeks from June to the end of August, the defence of the minimum values of those Class 4 and below races was fundamental, and we managed to persuade our colleagues and the levy board that the funds that they had dedicated to that period of just under 16 million were directed mainly down at the, certainly in terms of the cuts would take place at Class 4 and above, and that we would protect minimum values. The second stage of the return of racing from September to December, again, the levy board is funding it primarily, and the minimum values have held at the pre-COVID levels for Class 4 and below, where the reduction in prize money has been allocated to the higher class races. Going forward, it's fundamental that the minimum values are protected and improved. There's a piece of work that the ROA are leading on at the moment around the distribution of the prize money in terms of who gets what, but alongside that, also an assessment of minimum values and what it will take to improve those based on pre-COVID. And then the final piece is the use and return of an appearance money scheme, which can supplement the value of those lower class races.
One of the questions that came in to us at the ROA was asking about owners looking at the overall experience, and in particular, enhancing and updating the cost analysis for ownership, and perhaps taking it a step further by benchmarking average training and transport costs across the industry and geographically. This is something that we're very much aware of needs doing. What we've done subsequent to the ownership strategy is to work very closely with the wider Horsemen's Group and Porters Consulting, who led the economic impact study through what is now known as Project Enable. And the output from that has shown quite clearly the differing costs up and down the country. We're going to look to take that one step further, working closely with trainers to understand how costs differ by region, by code, and how we can help to make that area more transparent and, where possible, perhaps even standardizing some costs, so that when owners look to join the ownership ranks for the first time, they have a better idea of the costs involved. But also for owners currently enjoying the thrill of ownership, they'll be able to benchmark how they are, what fees they're currently paying with others in the industry.
I hope everyone's safe and well, and thank you for including me in members' questions. Regarding racing behind closed doors, it's been well documented in the racing news the importance of getting owners back to the racecourse as soon as was possible. And I must say that personally, my experience from working with the racecourses, they've been really willing to listen and work with the ROA team to ensure that the racecourse experience is as safe and as enjoyable as possible. The BHA have worked tirelessly with government to assist the return as soon as was practicable, and we eagerly now await the racing with crowds, which will ensure the racecourse once again will be full of the excitement that goes along with attending the racecourse as an owner, and that racing as we know it resumes as speedily as possible. Racecourses have needed to adapt their offering to owners on course swiftly. Most courses no longer have fully functioning catering facilities on site which fit government guidelines. Therefore, the afternoon tea provision that has been the offering at most racecourses has proved to be very popular. The addition of bottled water, bottled wine, spirits, alcohol and alcohol-free beverages have been an additional recent welcome. And in due course, now that our autumn is approaching and jump season's beckoning, I'm hoping that Racecourse will ensure that a hot food offering is available to owners complimentary, as well as soup and hot drinks, tea, coffee, etc. is going to be available complimentary as standard. I'm sure all these items can be easily offered, and I don't see why it should be any problem adapting to the new rules and guidelines from health and safety perspectives. With it being necessary to limit owners' numbers due to the COVID virus and the safe distancing ruling on course, owners have needed to be flexible on the locations that they occupy. And I hope very much that racecourses will now rethink the facilities that owners can enter to ensure that as many owners who want to attend racing can be allowed. Currently, owners on course cannot mix with those occupying the green zone, which has been a cause of major consternation. Racing staff, jockeys and trainers are separated from owners, and this has proved to be hugely unpopular. However, I hope in the near future, through track and trace apps, this will ensure that this can be alleviated. I also urge racecourses to ensure that the winning connections, ideally the first 4 placed horses home, can have access to a facility to watch their race again afterwards. The winning owner's experience cannot be measured highly enough. And as to clarify as an area of importance, racecourses need to ensure that owners can celebrate their win with complimentary drink, champagne, which has been usual standard, alongside a photographic experience with their horse. To highlight the significance of this point, we know that 44% of owners have left ownership as a direct result of a poor race day experience. Therefore, in these times, it's so important that this is not underestimated, and racecourses do everything in their power to ensure that owners have a wonderful day. Prize money is, of course, always high on the agenda, and the ROA is working towards creating new opportunities to enhance what is currently offered. This is through the reintroduction of the appearance money scheme, the media rights agreements which we're currently negotiating, and my personal wish is to see a transport incentive scheme for horses, which is obviously what they do in France. Horsemen have a synergistic relationship with racecourses, and we do need to ensure that we all work together collaboratively to ensure horse racing continues to be a major source of entertainment, enjoyment, and a source of employment in our country. On-course bookmakers are another recent addition back to the racecourse, and this has been a very welcome and necessary facility for all owners. The social interaction between owners, trainers and jockeys alongside groups of friends on course has been hit particularly hard, and all within racing are keen that we can resume together racing as safely, speedily and as enjoyable a way as possible, and in the way that we've all enjoyed. Keep safe everyone, and thank you. Best wishes, enjoy your racing.
Whilst COVID-19 has seen so much change across not only this industry but the wider landscape, how do you see the effects on the ROA, including the membership model as it currently stands?
Well, the membership of the ROA is what provides our revenue, and that provides our funding for all the work that we do, both in terms of looking after our members on a daily basis, on a benefits basis, but it also provides the funds to allow the executive team to address some of the industry-wide issues. I think that so far the membership model has been resilient, and I think that it's a robust model. It takes an annual decision to join, and I think that the work that we've done, both reaching out to existing members and in promoting ownership across the board, hopefully will provide us with a relatively strong position going forward. But we have to be vigilant and diligent and look at other ways of funding as well. Yeah, I think at the moment we would be fairly happy with where we are.
The Thoroughbred Brexit Steering Committee has been working solidly for the last couple of years to prepare for the day when we eventually leave the EU and when the tripartite agreement, which allows horses to move freely from the UK into the EU, comes to an end. Unless the government concludes a deal with the UK between now and the end of the year, the ramifications for the industry of the UK leaving without a deal are quite immense. It's complicated further by the fact that on April the 1st, 2021, the new EU animal health law comes into operation. That will further restrict the ability for the movement of animals from third countries into the EU. And for that purpose, the UK will, of course, become a third country. There will be 3 stages to the pragmatic problems that we'll have to engage with. Stage 1, January the 1st, when we're out of the EU, but the UK government have said that they're not in a position to impose all of the necessary controls at the border that they need to from January the 1st. So from that date, probably horses moving into the UK from France or Ireland or Germany will not have a huge problem. but the EU are in a position to impose the new rules from day one. And although you can move them into the UK, you probably won't be able to move them out again. Stage 2 will be April the 1st, when we're subject to the new animal health law. And stage 3 will be June the 30th, when we are fully going to impose all of the tariffs and border controls that the new regulations will allow. In terms of horses running abroad in races, our view is that a big yard like a Mark Johnson or a John Gosden could probably hire a specialist, full-time employee, to be able to go through all of the necessary protocols to be able to get your horse to race in Europe. Smaller yards will probably find it impossible. The restrictions and the protocols that you have to go through are all available on the BHA website, but they include a long series of veterinary checks, blood tests, and 30 days quarantine for the horse about to move across the border. That, of course, from a pragmatic standpoint, makes it very difficult for a horse about to race in France. It's further complicated by the fact that we are expecting to have problems at the borders, and the government are quite aware of this fact, and that horses, unlike other products, can't be held up at the border in order to go through a series of veterinary checks and legal document checks. In fact, the government have allowed 2 exceptions for items which can pass through the border quickly, one of which is day-old chicks and the other of which is frozen seafood, but sadly not horses. There's another problem insofar as your UK horse box will not be allowed to operate in Europe unless it has a specific EU operating license, of which the EU have issued, I think, 1,700 already to UK operators, and I doubt that too many of our trainers are included in that list of 1,700 licenses that have been granted. So your horse will have to go through a specially operating UK haulier that does have this license, or move from your horse box at the border to another horse box. It's not going to be easy. It could become impossible, and we could well be looking at a scenario where the days of English horses running in French races and vice versa will come to an end. As far as Ireland's concerned, of course, Ireland is in the EU, and the same situation will apply. Not only that, but the Irish racing industry is almost dependent on using the UK as a land bridge to transport their horses, not just to the UK, but to France and Germany and other EU countries. And unless you're able to fly your horse from Dublin to Paris, the Irish will have a huge problem in moving their horses around. That's a big problem for the Irish racing industry. What are we doing about it as an industry? Well, we are lobbying the government in terms of the specific problems that the racing industry has. This itself is difficult because I doubt that the thoroughbred racing industry is top of the government's agenda as problems that need solving as part of Brexit. Secondly, we're engaging with the EU Commission in Brussels to try and create a special high health status for racehorses, so they're not all thrown into this same pot of the new EU animal health law. Also, from a pragmatic standpoint, we have to bear in mind how we can mitigate going forward, such as, for example, having a training centre at Haydock to allow Grand National horses to be trained prior to running at Aintree, because obviously they won't be able to arrive just in time for the race like they do now. Or in terms of the national hunt industry, we may need to import top-class stallions from Ireland because we're short of top-class national hunt stallions in the UK. We're on top of the situation. It's very complicated. It's going to be a very bumpy ride, and it's going to be a very different world.
Hi, Celia Djivanovic answering the question about equality in racing and women on the ROA board. Whenever the question of equality is raised, it is a given that everyone says more can be done, and that is true. However, progress has been made and continues. The BHA has set up the Diversity in Racing Group, which is supported by the ROA, and the ROA is represented on that group, and the aim there is to widen diversity in all areas of the industry, both participants, and to reach out to a wider spectrum of spectators. As of the 1st of January 2021, the 2 top jobs at the BHA will be held by women, so things are definitely changing. As for the ROA board composition, the board is elected by the members, and if the members elect women, there are women on the board. At the moment, 25% of the membership is female and 33% of the board is female. So I think we women have it okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
There are concerns raised by our members that the complex multi-stakeholder environment does not serve racing well, and there is a need for change. The question is, who from the BHA's member organisation will break this self-interest pattern and reach out to make change happen? Perhaps a decision could be made to empower their governing body, holding it to account, of course, but actually empowering it. Will ROA be that body?
Well, it is a complicated structure, and it was one that was put in place to allow an industry to move forward. It basically coalesces around 3 groups: the horsemen, of which the ROA are a member, the Racecourse Association, which all racecourses are a member, and the BHA. So it's a tripartite agreement, which can be complex, it can lead to self-interest dictating, and it can lead to blockages where things need to happen, but they don't happen. I think that the period since lockdown, where racing was forced to come together and work together collaboratively on the recovery, getting owners back, getting crowds back, has shown that as an industry, when faced with challenges, we can work together. And the structure does work. Where it falls down is where self-interest does dictate. I think the fact now that the ROA and the Horsemen's Group are so aligned and that we can work together, and that the challenges we face around the revenues of this sport and the growth of those revenues is something that will lead us to work collaboratively. I also think that the BHA's new chief executive will bring a fresh look on at the beginning of next year, fresh ideas, and the arrival of Julie will allow things, maybe some of the old embitterments to be left in the past. So I think the ROA is the body, but personally the ROA within and embedded in the Horsemen's Group is the critical relationship to be able to allow the BHA to do the things they need to do at the behest of their 2 stakeholders, the racecourses and the Horsemen's Group. I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning and confirm that the 2020 Racehorse Owners Association Annual General Meeting is now concluded. Thank you all for joining us, and if you have any feedback or require any further information, please do not hesitate to contact us by email or telephone.